Today we're going to be talking about Charles Band's Full Moon Entertainment, and the question to be answered down in the comments this week: what is your favorite full moon movie? I'm Adam Caesar. This is Project Black T-Shirt, the channel where we take a new release or a reissue horror movie and pair it with a book that you will like to read if you like that movie. And today we are talking about multiple movies. The video says 5, but we'll see if we even leave it at 5, because I've got a fat stack of full moon Blu-rays there that I was inspired to talk about and inspired to make a video like this because of a book, actually. So this is a weird video where we're going to talk about the book recommendation first. And that book is called It Came from the Video Aisle, Inside Charles Band's Full Moon Entertainment, and that has 3 authors. It is by David J., William Wilson, and Torsten Dewey, a nonfiction book that is a kind of oral history compiling of the end of Empire Pictures through to present day. Full Moon's been going for 30-something years, and this book covers everything chronologically. It's organized in an interesting way where it talks about everything chronologically, how the studio gets started, where they are now, and then it circles back and it talks about kind of the major franchises like Puppet Master, TRANCERS, Subspecies. So it has all different interviews with directors and producers and actors and people who've worked with Charles Band and Band himself, and it's all cobbled together into this comprehensive history. And the way I read this book, I didn't read it, I listened to the audiobook, and I can't recommend it enough. The audiobook's really, really fantastic. I wish I'd bought the paperback too, and I still might, just to have photo inserts and just to have kind of be able to go back and use it as a reference book. But as far as these kinds of nonfiction reference-y type books go, usually they don't really translate to audiobook, but this one does really, really well since it is such an oral history of Full Moon. As you're reading that book, it is almost impossible not to want to just sit down and watch some of these movies and refresh your memory and see movies that they're talking about that you haven't seen, and that's exactly where I found myself for the last few months. I've really been immersed in Full Moon mythology and catching up on films that I only half remember as a kid, catching up on movies that I wasn't allowed to rent as a kid, catching up on movies that they've made more recently. We're going to talk about 5 Blu-rays. Now, they are a company that went from VHS to DVD and is slowly but surely translating their back catalog to Blu-ray. And a lot of kind of key films, a lot of movies I would have liked to talk about are not on Blu-ray yet, so hopefully they keep doing that. And I know in the 90s and early 2000s era, a lot of it was shot on tape, so they're not going to be able to do Blu-ray transfers for a lot of these films. But I hope Band and Company keep doing this, even though they are heavily promoting their proprietary streaming channel, Full Moon Streaming, heavily promoting. They've got a bunch of free movies. If you want to see any of these movies that I talk about, but you're not exactly ready to drop the money on a disc, on a Blu-ray, check Tubi, because they have a partnership with Tubi, T-U-B-I. It's kind of the best kept streaming secret, and Full Moon has a ton of their movies streaming for free on there. You have to watch ads, but they're minimal. The ads are minimally invasive. These aren't necessarily my favorite Full Moon movies. These aren't necessarily even the best Full Moon movies. They're just the Blu-rays I liked the most and that I liked experiencing the most. We're going to talk about 5 of them. First film we're going to talk about, technically not even a Full Moon production, because I believe this was still when it was Empire Pictures, but it is covered in the book, and that is TRANCERS, starring the immortal Tim Thomerson, who we're going to talk more about. But TRANCERS is a more genre Blade Runner. It is cop gets sent back down the line, down into his one of his ancestors. He's a future cop. He has to go find a bad guy, so in order to do so, he gets sent back in time. But the way that time travel works in the series, and it's very loosey-goosey the way time travel works in this series, but Jack Death, this future super cop, is sent back to inhabit the body of one of his ancestors and fight crime that way. And Helen Hunt's there, and it's a really, really, really fun, really, really accomplished film. This is one of the more lavish movies we're going to talk about, and it has really cool effects. A really great cast, and it's quick. It's Charles Band directed this one himself. One of the few full moon movies where you're sitting and you're watching and you're like, I could watch 3 hours more of this. And luckily there are a bunch of more Trancers movies. The reason I am recommending this set, Squid Pack, because it has 2 other discs, and these are like the full releases. These aren't stripped down, no extras versions. These are the full single releases, but they package them all together. So I'm recommending the first Trancers, but if you buy it this way, you get the 2 sequels too, which were Full Moon productions, which this is something that Band actually held on to the rights to and that followed him from Empire to Full Moon. The reason, more than anything, I think this is one of the best, if not the best, of the Full Moon Blu-rays, is that this Ultimate Edition has a ton of features on it. It doesn't just have, a lot of them are porting over their old making of features from the video zone. Sometimes there's a full video zone that has like the commercials and stuff in it, which is really fun. But Trancers also includes a 25-minute short film that was meant to go in an anthology that never came out, that was kind of lost to time. But they'd filmed it as kind of a semi-sequel to Trancers. It doesn't really bridge the gap between Trancers 1 and 2 because it never came out. But it's fascinating to look at, and a really cool little Easter egg, and definitely worth watching. Don't just skip between Trancers and then Trancers 2. Watch the Trancers City of Lost Angels? Trancers City of Los Angeles. I remembered the title correctly. But very, very, very good disc. Good looking movie. Got some real grit and grain to it. But they did a good job with this disc. There's one thing Charles Band is known for. It's his abundance of good taste. But if there's another thing that Charles Band is known for, it is that he loves killer toys, killer puppets, killer little diminutive things that come and stab you. But one of the most slept on films in the entire Full Moon canon, I believe, is Demonic Toys. This is a film I had not seen for a very, very, very long time. It is a movie that, you ever have that thing where you, as a kid, you were either really traumatized by something or really scared by something or had recurring nightmares about it, and you grew up into an adult but you don't remember what the movie was? I don't remember how I saw a portion of Demonic Toys as a kid. It doesn't seem like it would play on TV. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing my parents would rent, but for years I had remembered a scene with a dollhouse and a evil kid in this kind of weird Victorian clothing, and he was menacing this woman and just doing creepy things, and it scared the hell out of me. I must have saw it when I was like 3 or 4 years old, 5 years old. I remember that all the time, and I would always think, I've seen thousands of horror movies, and I never came back across it, and I could never find anyone to tell me what that scene was from. It was a scene, a small scene, in Demonic Toys. And I imagine my surprise. I read that book. I'm watching, re-going through all these Full Moon movies, and there it is. That's the scene that scared me so much as a kid. Other than my weird, traumatic nostalgia, Demonic Toys is really good. It's a really, really good movie. It is very threadbare. It's all mostly one location, all just a warehouse, but it's incredibly inventive. The toys actually are demonic. They are possessed. We have this subplot where there's an angel and a demon, and they're both represented by these 2 little kids. It's like actually Satan taking control of these toys at a toy factory. And it's kind of a siege story where the cops and the bad guys and the people that work in the factory are all kind of locked in together and have to work together against these. There's a robot, there's Baby Oopsie, who's the kind of standout toy, there's this crazy clown, not in a cornfield, but crazy clown Jack in a Box, and a bear, bear actually might be my favorite. And they're possessed, and they have really cool kind of weird different abilities that are all not just the same. Really inventive sequences like the dollhouse sequence I mentioned, where we're not only squaring off with the toys themselves, but we're squaring off with this demon. Toys are designed by John Carl Buechler, partly designed by John Carl Buechler, who did Ghoulies and Dolls and Reanimator. He's just such a mainstay in special effects and monster makeup design. And you get to see him talking in the video zone. It's really nice, and he talks about how Baby Oopsie's kind of like, they almost look like him, all of his creations, because they have prominent brows. I thought that was really nice. It's a really good set to just enjoy your evening, watch the film, watch the video zone on it. It's not an overabundance of of features on this one, but it's just a good movie, and the video zone is presented, I think, in full on this one. It's a really good video zone, so worth checking out. Now, when making up this list, when deciding what I was going to talk about, I got in front of the camera and I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to include every major full moon franchise, so I know I'm going to have someone in the comments telling me, what about movie X from franchise Y? But we absolutely cannot not talk about the Puppet Master films. These are the movies that built Full Moon to a huge extent. I have this kind of like 3-disc set that I'm not sure they're making anymore, but I think there's a slimline all-in-one jewel case, like with the Trancers set of the first 3 Puppet Masters films, which are definitely the best. But if we're going to just pick one, if I have to pick one to be on my top 5 Full Moon Blu-rays, I'm going to say Puppet Master 2. Puppet Master 2 is not the first film, and not generally held as the series peak, which people usually point to David DeCoteau's Puppet Master 3, which is a prequel that takes place during World War II. But for me, Puppet Master 2, there is no finer Puppet Master film, because the puppets are bad guys. Toulon has been their puppet master, the titular puppet master, has been kind of transformed into almost like a Universal Monsters monster in this film. And the director is Dave Allen, who is the stop motion director and the man behind all the puppetry effects in stop motion. So he really knows how to shoot these things and knows how to make these puppets menacing and creepy. And Blade and Pinhead and Leech Woman and Torch. This is the film that introduces Torch. It's really, really good. Revisiting these films on Blu-ray, haven't seen them on DVD, hadn't seen them since VHS. The idea that these movies were straight to video, and the idea that straight to video would later become kind of a slur or a knock on films. I think a lot of people have kind of tricked themselves into thinking that at least the first couple Puppet Master movies were theatrical movies, but they are not. They were straight to video, but they're shot on film, and seeing these movies widescreen, seeing them in high definition, it really does feel like seeing them for the first time. I really, really, really enjoyed my kind of romp through the Puppet Masters as I went through them. But if you're only going to pick up one, if you're not going to get the 3-disc set, I would say Puppet Master 2. These are the most stacked releases. They have not only the video zones, but they have actually new commentaries, newly produced features and stuff like that. So they're very good buys. They're very good discs. And the vintage stuff on there, like the 1990s toy commercials and stuff, the video zones where they show you how to order model kits and join the Full Moon fan club and stuff like that. It's really, really great kind of nostalgic stuff. So highly recommend checking these out. And for the next 2 picks on my list, I went weird. Let's not talk about the main things. I'm not going to talk about the subspecies films, which are great, which are filmed in Romania, and they feel like after you read it came from the video aisle, and you see the extent to which band had moved during the 90s, had moved production to Romania. The subspecies films seem really important to watch just for historical context, but I'm not going to talk about them because they weren't my favorite discs. What I am going to talk about, Albert Pune's Dollman. Dollman is Tim Thomerson again, Jack Death himself, playing a new character this time. He's playing Brick Bardo, who is another kind of futuristic super cop, but he is not from the future, he's from another planet. And when he gets to Earth, he's shrunk down to, well, about Blade size. He's shrunk down to kind of puppet size, doll size. He is Dollman. And it's kind of a fish out of water comedy with him in 90s the Bronx, which I don't think they shot in the Bronx. I think it might be shot in LA with inserts of the Bronx, but it still has a lot of footage that makes you feel that New York feeling, even though I don't think it's quite a New York movie. This is directed by Albert Pune, who I think is one of the most underrated low-budget directors. It is not a Full Moon movie, but MVD recently did, as part of their Rewind collection, they did his film Nemesis, which if you haven't seen, it's awesome. The Blade Runner, Terminator, pastiche, cyberpunk film. Really, really good. But yeah, Albert Pune directs the hell out of, I would say, the first 2/3 of Dollman, and then it's a movie. A lot of these movies are short. A lot of these movies were made on tight budgets, made on tight schedules, Dollman's a movie that feels compromised. The ending is nowhere near as good as the beginning. Dollman chases a futuristic bad guy who is just a head. He's Frank Collinson, the character actor, but he's just a floating head who has like an atom bomb, some kind of futuristic gobbledygook bomb. He ingratiates himself into a gang of hoods in the Bronx, led by Jackie Earle Haley, former child star, future remake Freddy Krueger Jackie Earle Haley, and Dollman has to kind of square off with Jackie Earle Haley. It's kind of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids meets The Warriors. It's a good way of putting it. So that's Dollman. It's a movie that I hadn't seen. This is not a movie I have nostalgia for. It's a movie I hadn't seen until reading the book, until kind of doing this deep dive into Full Moon. But I was so pleasantly surprised by it. It does fall apart in the end, but it is well worth checking out. There's also a quasi-sequel crossover where Dollman fights the demonic toys. There is a set that just includes all three of them. Don't be a dope like me and pick up the set. If you're interested in both these films, pick up the set that comes with the third film. And the last film, I didn't really go in any kind of chronological order, but I did want to give a sample of what Full Moon's more recent output is like. What since they've started the streaming platform and since they've started doing like short form, almost serialized movies. This movie began life as that. It is called Trophy Heads. And this is directed by Band himself, and the concept is a serial killer who lives with his mother, tracking down former Scream Queens because he's this kind of basement-dwelling guy who just watches Full Moon movies over and over again and kind of becomes fixated on the idea of the Scream Queen, and that it's a dying art form, and that these women are aging, and he doesn't want them to change, he doesn't want them to go away, so he tracks down Scream Queens who are real Scream Queens playing very broad, very jokey versions of themselves. Like Linnea Quigley is like a born again. She like proselytizes and like gives away pamphlets and stuff like that. Brink Stevens is a massage therapist. They all have these like weirdo jobs where they've moved on, and he kidnaps them and he forces them to play kind of sadistic Saw-like games that are based on their old movies. And it's a great premise. It does feel a little episodic because it was built as webisodes, but there's something so really kind of heartwarming and nice about Trophy Heads, and it's as wrong-headed as a lot of these movies are, and as weird and as antiquated as a lot of these movies are. Trophy Heads has something interesting to say about standards of beauty and getting older, and how Hollywood views its female stars as commodities. And it actually it's not the smartest movie in the world, but it's trying. It's saying something. It's really took me by surprise how much I like this movie. It's full of little Easter eggs and references to the Full Moon universe, and it has cameos beyond the Scream Queens themselves: Darcy DeMoss, Michelle Bauer, Brink Stevens, Linnea Quigley. So beyond these Scream Queens, there's David Dakota shows up as just like a dopey tourist guy. Stuart Gordon, the late great Stuart Gordon, shows up as himself as like a director. So it's a movie clearly made with affection, clearly made with more self-awareness than these films usually exhibit, and it's a really kind of good gateway into watching other movies. Like he uses creepazoids as like one of the premises for the Linnea Quigley part. Brink Stevens gets hunted down in a kind of Most Dangerous Game, Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity tribute. It's a movie that pushed me even further into checking out those films and Full Moon's back catalog and the movies they wanted to talk about in this movie. It's really good. I really liked it. The performances are strong. It feels more ambitious than its budget, but it's really punching above its weight class. If you haven't given the more recent Full Moon movies a try, I would recommend starting with this one. And I will put the links to all those discs down below. Try to shop local. Try to support our friends at Diabolic DVD and other sources. Chime in the comments with other discs you think I should check out, other things I haven't talked about. And once again, that book was called It Came from the Video Aisle. It's really, really good. If you have even a passing interest in Full Moon and their movies and their history. It's just a good book about filmmaking. I really, really enjoyed it. It was meticulously researched and really exhaustive, but didn't feel exhausting. It's great. I'm Adam Caesar. I write books. I've written a bunch of short stories, novels, and novellas that you can check out right now. And in August, you can buy Clown in the Cornfield this is a softcover pre-release copy, but there's going to be a beautiful hardcover of this out through Harper Teen. Clive Barker's called Me, an author who knows how to make us afraid, which is the most mind-blowing sentence I've ever said, I've ever heard. Check that out. Please pre-order it. Pre-orders help a lot. They help authors a lot. And my other books are in paperback, ebook, audiobook. If you listen to things, if you're a podcaster or an audiobook person, you can go get those on Audible. Yeah, thank you so much. And spreading the word and reviewing and telling people about the books really, really helps me, really helps keep the channel going. So thanks so much. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that other stuff. Find me on Twitter. Yell at me about my Full Moon movie taste. And I'll see you next week.